we doing today, everybody? It's WatchDisplay here. Thank you for joining me. Today, my video topic is going to be 5 reasons why I hate the Omega Speedmaster Professional. Now, hold on. There's going to be a ton of people right off the bat. They're going to just jump into this video. They're not even going to listen to the video, and they're going to start commenting in the bottom. Oh, Speedmaster Pro, it's the best. It's man on the moon. It went to the moon. What other watch went to the moon? It went against Rolex, and it beat Rolex. And okay, listen. Anybody that knows me and anybody has conversed with me on a personal level knows that I do heavily desire the Omega Speedmaster Professional. I admire its history. I admire its design most of all. I do absolutely love the design of the Omega Speedmaster Professional, and we're talking about the entire aesthetics and the wearability. But anybody that also has known me, I have sold several Omega Speedmasters, and mainly Omega Speedmaster Professionals. I've had several variations. So just before we get into the topic, just so you know that I have had several models. My first Speedmaster wasn't a professional, but it was a Speedmaster date. And that's where the dial, slightly elevated dial, and a very actually detailed dial. It's a smaller watch. I think it's a 39 or a 38 millimeter. And it's a chronograph, obviously it's a Speedmaster. And it's got the chronograph at, or the sub-dials at 12, 6, and 9, and then dated 3. That was my first watch kind of getting me into Speedmasters. I picked that over the reduced, and I've never actually owned a reduced, just to let you know that. My next was a 3570-50. I've had several 3570-50s. My next one after that was a Shoemaker. I probably said that wrong, but a limited edition, numbered, I don't remember what it was, but basically the Panda, and that one was an automatic, which is going to be talking about a little bit why I discourage against, one of the reasons I discourage against the Speedmaster Professional. Then I just recently had a vintage 1976 145.022 76 ST. Sorry for the long, all the numbers or whatnot, but we got to kind of differentiate on what I've had. So I've had everything from vintage to modern. Oh, first Omega in space. I had that one also with the big box. That one is the straight lug. It also has no crown guards, kind of the piston pushers. It was also more aesthetically like the vintage applied marker, or applied logo, for the Omega logo. Okay, so let's get into it, why I hate the Omega Speedmaster. And I'm going to be honest, I don't honestly hate the watch. I do think it's very important for every watch collector to experience the Omega Speedmaster Professional once in their collection. Will I ever get a Speedmaster Professional again? I'm sure I will. Track record shows I have a love-hate relationship for the Omega Speedmaster. But for those who are considering an Omega Speedmaster, or they're wondering why some people sell them, or why it's not, I wouldn't say not good to have one, but why I actually sold all my Speedmasters. Because I've had several people message me on Instagram, why did you let that one go? Why did you let that one go? Why did you sell that one? And to be honest with you, I'm a serial flipper. That's one of the biggest things. It takes a lot to stick in my collection. But let's get down to my 5 reasons of why I hate the Omega Speedmaster. Number 1, tiny crown. Okay, and I'm talking about the Omega Speedmaster Professional, any of this professional range. And remember, I've had the vintage variations, so and I've also had the first Omega in space, which is the modern big box. I also had the 3570-50. So I've had several variations. I don't find it aesthetically pleasing winding that watch. And it's not just the winding. It's not just the actual winding of the watch. I'm talking about the crown. It is hard for my fingers to actually grasp that crown. It actually honestly annoys the crap out of me. Now, I don't have huge hands. You know, I have a 6 3/4 inch wrist. It's not like I have huge fingers. So I could imagine someone with big fingers trying to wind that crown. Now, it was a little bit easier on the first Omega in space because it didn't have crown guards. I will be completely honest with you on that one. But that's my number one reason, right? So you have to wind this watch. I forgot what the power reserve is, 46. Correct me in the comments. I don't remember all the technicalities of that movement, but you have to wind it every couple days. I'm one that will have a watch sit in the safe for sometimes over a month without even wearing it. Yes, I do get them out from time to time and wind them, but what I'm trying to say is for a watch that has, in order to be accurate, it must be wound before it runs out of its power reserve. Then if I don't enjoy winding it, I might not like the watch. So that's number one. Now, there's going to be plenty of people that are probably going to say, oh, it doesn't bother me. And that's okay for you. But these are my reasons, and they're my opinions. So you have every right to your opinions. Number two, lack of variation other than the numerous limited and numbered editions. So there's a lack of variation in just the standard Omega Speedmaster Professional. So even the 35, 70, 50, which is before the big box, even you do have the variation where you can get the Hesselite with the sapphire display on the back, and you can also get the sapphire sandwich. So you're getting a little bit of variation in the actual case itself, or the actual materials used in the actual overall watch, but you still have that black dial. I yearned after getting something different, so that's why I tried the first Omega in space. The dial is slightly different, applied logo, kind of more of a vintage Omega look. Same with the automatic. I try to get away from that number one reason why I hated the Omega Speedmaster Professional is having to wind the watch by getting the auto, right? And honestly, winding that one still sucked. I'm gonna be completely honest with you, okay? And I did get the Panda dial, which was actually a beautiful dial. That might be my second favorite Omega Speedmaster that I've owned, and it's not even a professional, okay? So lack of variation other than limited editions. Recently, there was a nice slew of, I think it was 4 or 5 different variations that were only limited to the Japan market. I loved a lot of those dials, right? But they're only limited to the Japan market. You also have these Speedy Tuesday editions that are straight bogus in my opinion. They're outrageous and they're overpriced. Now, overpriced to me is overpriced to me. You might think it's worth that, and if you have that watch, I'm not trying to offend you. But if we were sitting here talking about your Speedy Tuesday, any of the variations, if you were talking, or even your Ultraman, if you were talking about any of these limited releases by Omega, and you told me the price that you paid for it, if you're fine with that price, that's all that matters. If you love that watch, that's all that matters. To me, I would never spend that amount on a Speedmaster Professional unless I was going to resell it. Completely get it for resale purposes, all right? So lack of variation, and kind of combined in that only variation you get are in these limited editions that are outrageous in price, and sometimes you can't even get your hands on them because they only limit a certain amount of those, and it's basically hard for the average consumer to pick up one of those watches unless you want to pay an astronomical amount of price from someone that bought it just for resale, like the reason I would buy it. Number 3, the bracelet. Now this is going to be a little bit harder to talk about because each Speedmaster variation, there's been obviously a evolution in the bracelet. My favorite bracelet that I had, and I can't even remember the reference, I think it's a 1179 bracelet. It was a solid end links. I'll try to throw a photo up in here in the video. It was actually the incorrect bracelet that was on my vintage Speedmaster, but it had solid end links and it was closer to the vintage bracelet, right? So it was a little bit newer than the actual 76 model, but it gave you a little bit more of a newer feel on the wrist. I love that bracelet. It had, I think it had 4 or 5 micro adjustments on the actual clasp. No like easy link or diver extension. Obviously it's not a diver. But even the new bracelet, right? The new bracelet on the Omega Speedmaster Professional big boxes, it does have screws. It's a very well constructed bracelet. I absolutely love the look of the bracelet, but there's no micro adjustments in the clasp. Okay, so a lot of people message me and say, oh, well, you can get the new Speedmaster bracelet to put on there. It has a diver extension. You know what? I'm spending over $3,000 on a watch brand new. I don't want to have to go source another bracelet just to wear it. Okay? That's not something I want to do. That is annoying, and that's just, I don't love the watch enough to want to do that. Okay? So I have been pampered with Rolex bracelets. That's good. Modern Rolex bracelets. Let's not talk about the pre-ceramic or 5-digit bracelets. Let's talk about 6-digit bracelets with Easy Link or even the Submariner with the Glide Lock, where at a drop of a dime I can change the bracelet without getting any tools out. Okay, and I thought the bracelet was behind me, but my watch that I have, wristwatch check, I have the Speedmaster 300 Master Coaxial. This actually does have a diver extension in it. I love the bracelet on this. Okay. It allows me to minutely change if I get hot, my wrist might expand, vice versa. If I get cold, it might shrink, all right? And of course, we all gain a little bit of weight here and there in the winter months if we have winter, okay? So I'm not a huge fan of the bracelet, okay? For a $3,000 watch, can we get some micro adjustments? Do I have to buy the whole bracelet? I know you can just buy the clasp, but can you just add can you add that option? So when you're buying the watch, can you add that option to go on and just switch out the clasp, even if it's a slight upcharge, instead of having to buy the whole clasp, you know, basically just pay so much extra for that clasp direct from Omega? Can we do that? Number 4, the movement. And this is kind of controversial, okay? So the movement's not bad. There's nothing wrong with the movement. A lot of people love the movement, and they're also going to say that, you know, the manual movement and this is going to kind of come down to we briefly discussed it on my number 1 reason why I didn't like it, and that was the tiny crown and having to actually manual wind the watch. I don't mind actually manual winding the watch. That's something I don't mind, but I think that Omega should make their own hand wind caliber. Put it in their Omega Speedmasters, okay? They have amazing movements. The 8400 Master Coaxial movements in this Speedmaster, and I think they can construct an Omega hand wind movement. Now let's hold on. There's going to be a whole bunch of people who are going to say, "Hey, but the ones that went on the moon, they were 18, I don't remember, 3-2-1 movements." Okay, well, unless you have that vintage variation with the actual hand wind 3-2-1 movement, your 1861 or your 1863 movement is not the same movement that went on the moon. Plain and simple. So to me, yeah, there has been some evolutions in the 1861. I don't know all the dynamics and the movement parts. I don't get into the technicality of that. That's what watchmakers are for. But there is a plastic piece inside of that movement. I'll put a shot up here, a macro shot of that plastic piece, which actually, I mean, you don't see it, but it is kind of annoying. In the 1863 movement, actually no, that was in the 861 movement. My apologies. The 861 movement had this little plastic piece in there. The 1863 with the display case back, obviously they switched it out because people are going to see it and they're going to see plastic. They're going to be like, what the heck? Spent over $3,000. I got plastic piece in my watch. What the heck? You know, but sorry about that. Yeah, that was my little bit of my outburst. And okay, my number 5 reason, and this one is, they're getting better with this. They're starting to keep reference numbers out for a little bit longer. But more specifically in the vintage watches, you have your 68s, you have your 71s, you have your, I'm probably missing a gap in here, 74, 76, 78 STs, right? Well, each of those years, there's a little bit of variation. Now, in the vintage days, a lot of different manufacturers kind of networked and outsourced people for manufacturing the case, people for manufacturing the dials. And companies still do that to this day, right? But there's less variation. So there might be one Omega Speedmaster model, and I don't know any specifics of this, but I do know that there was two different case constructions for Omega and some of their vintage models in the Speedmaster Professional. There was also a little bit of variations in their logo. And I understand there's evolution, but there was a lot of change in those every 2 years or every 3 years, whatever it is, in those ST145022 models, right? There's a lot of variation, which makes it hard for someone that doesn't study these all the time, like myself, to pick one up and know that I'm getting something that has not been changed with service hands or changed with a service dial or a service bezel insert. You know, those things happen with service, right? But I would like to know before I buy it. And that makes it a little bit murky for me. My favorite examples are the Tritium 145022 models. I love them. I love the Tritium look. I love how they start getting ghostly. The dials even get kind of a grayish color on the black. They have some of the dials that get brown, the older variants, the more collectible versions than I had. And I love those, right? But there's so much variation in parts, because parts were coming from all over the place. And sure, this is kind of not a complete valid argument, because this is very true for a lot of Rolex too, and a lot of other manufacturers during the vintage era. You could easily, sorry, I was looking down at my dog. He's hanging out here next to me, snoozing and snoring. I didn't know if the camera was picking it up. But there's, obviously service hands or service dial in Rolex also. But generally, in most of the listings, I will see that being presented to me. Service dial, Swiss only dial, that type of thing. Service dial, service hands were reloomed. And I mean, I'm not saying that all Omega vintage models being sold are like people like trying to hide it. But what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of variation. And if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to buy these, it could hit you, and it could basically, if you wanted to get rid of it, you might start finding out that the insert was replaced, even though it's like ideally identical to the average watch collector. And even someone for myself, I definitely feel like I know Rolex a lot better than I do Omega. But that's my 5 reasons why I honestly don't hate the Omega Speedmaster. So I more or less use that to get all the Speedmaster Pro people to come in here and just start bashing before they even watch the video, which always tends to happen. Another person that maybe doesn't want a manual wind, they could consider some of the autos, and then there's going to be a lot of purists that are going to comment and say, oh, you only want to buy the manual wind. You only want to buy the manual wind. This is the only collectible Speedmaster Professional. And, buy what you want. At the end of the day, buy what you like. If you love the Speedmaster Professional, it's a sexy watch, plain and simple. I love the look of the watch. It's a great watch. I'll own another Speedmaster Professional. But I guess in the comments, I would love to hear your favorite chronograph sub $5,000. And I think you could get a lot of talking. There's a lot of heavy hitters. The new Heritage Longines that came out, the kind of military look, the Zenith El Primero. There's a lot of different variations in that. Obviously the 38, the 40, it's actually the Chronomaster. A lot of people call it the Zenith El Primero, but the Zenith El Primero is actually the movement. It's not the actual name of the watch. The name that we all know with the tri-color silver dial, or sometimes it looks white in some photos, is the 1969 Chronomaster. And it comes in 38 and it comes in 42. 42 has dated 6, 38 has dated between 4 and 5. That's a great option. The Breguet Type 20 is amazing. I had the Transatlantique, which is I'll put a photo up here, is the more brushed variant of versus the more polished non-date on the Ehrenville. Transatlantique has a date. It's 6 o'clock. I do wish the window was black. The contrast of the date window was black in the Transatlantique. But more brushed, as brushing the center links on the bracelet, has brushed bezel. Kind of looks kind of similar to an Explorer 2, but I think it has a lot more character. Another great contender in there, for chronographs are some of the Hamilton. I mean, Hamilton makes some amazing chronographs. Yeah, they're a little bit, I guess I'd say a little bit less in terms of entry-level luxury versus luxury, but they offer some great, I think it's the Intramatic or the Chronomatic. I can't remember what it is, but it's got the panda dial. My buddy just picked one up, and it's an amazing looking watch. I love that watch. It's super sexy. But there's some options. Tell me what your favorite sub $5,000 chronograph is, and if you continue to have the Speedmaster Professional, comment your reason why you still have the Speedmaster Professional, and also comment why you sold your Speedmaster Professional if you have sold it. And you know, I'm not here to bash any brands. I'm literally here for an open discussion. As anybody knows, I do have I do desire the Speedmaster Professional. I think it's an amazing watch, but there are some things that can kind of bug me, and probably some of the reasoning why I always end up selling it. But thanks for joining me. Remember to follow me on Instagram at WatchDisplay, and I thank you so much. Please, if you like the video, subscribe, and please hit the little bell icon. It helps me a ton. And you know, the only thing that, you know, I do these videos in my extra time, so I apologize. They're not like the craziest quality in the world, but I have had a pretty vast amount of watches over the past 3 or 4 years. So I do have a pretty good knowledge in terms of what is awesome about a watch and what is bad about a watch, and I'm very open with it. So feel free to message me direct on Instagram also. I'd love to share some of my opinions with you, and I'd love to get some of your opinions. All right, and until next time, have a good one.